For regular videos on ancient cultures and forgotten civilizations, please subscribe. If you would like to support the channel and become part of our ancient history fan community, visit patreon.com/World of Antiquity. Welcome to the Antiquities Travel Guide. Follow us to different countries as we search for ancient artifacts. If you too wish to explore the ancient past through travel, we'll help you plan where to go, what to see, and how best to enjoy what you encounter. In this series of the ATG, you can accompany Cassie and me on our trek through the Yucatan Peninsula, homeland of the ancient Maya. Come on, let's go! Driving eastward along Federal Highway 186 through the rainforest of southern Quintana Roo, we made our way to the village of Francisco Villa. There, we took a right onto a paved road leading to our next destination, Kohunlich. The name of this site is not Mayan. There's a tree that lives in abundance here called the corozo, or Kohun palm in English, so Kohunlich means Hill of the Kohun. It costs 75 pesos to get in, which is about $3.85 American. There is an extra fee for video cameras, and although we saw this posted at other sites, the attendants here seemed more strict about it. They were suspicious even of our phones. We managed to convince them that we were non-commercial. Evidence of first settlement goes back to around 200 BCE, but the period of the city's splendor, when most of the buildings were constructed, is the early Classic period, around 250 to 600 CE. The cities we've seen so far have had their peaks either in the late Classic or Terminal Classic periods, so this one matured earlier. The central plaza is open, sunny, and well manicured, but there's plenty of the site that's nice and shady too.
So, Dave and I are here at Kohunlich, sweating our butts off because it is very muggy at 9 a.m. today. As you can see, this site is still covered by dense vegetation. Much of it is untouched by archaeologists. The site is open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. every day.
There are 8 clusters of buildings to explore in Kohunlich, all part of the ceremonial center of the city. What's interesting is that this site had its own unique architectural style, though you can find a bit of Rio Bec and Peten influence here too. I'm standing here in the residential complex. This is kind of basically like apartment buildings where people actually lived here at the site of Kohunlich. So it's kind of cool. You may be wondering how the ancient Maya city dwellers lived. Commoner Mayan homes were not found within the city core. These are the residences of the elite, who built with higher quality masonry than commoners. Elite houses would rest on raised platforms. Both elites and commoners lived in a nuclear family situation, with extended family members living in close proximity. We're going to see an even cooler residential complex coming up. Right next to this, you'll come to the Acropolis. It's one of the highest buildings on the site, with chambers around a patio. Even more chambers are on the upper level. The colonnades and niches and stucco motifs are all in the Rio Bec style. Quite a beautiful view up here. This place is home also to many howler monkeys, which you can hear in the background. When we heard the howler monkeys, we headed for the trees. Cassie was very eager to see some more. Kohunlich's prosperity was due largely to its location. It sat on a trade route that connected many Maya cities in the southern Yucatan. The inhabitants here created an enormous water reservoir, and they cut channels and dug cisterns, choltunes, to catch the rainwater. Considering that this was accomplished during the early Classic period, the ingenuity and effort of the people of Kohunlich is all the more impressive. They're back there somewhere.
We're looking for howler monkeys.
Further on, there is a large platform on which more residential buildings for the elite existed. It's called the 27 Steps, for obvious reasons. You can climb to the top, and the view up there is fabulous. As for the residences, only the foundations are still preserved, but you can see that some of the beds that people slept on are still here. The fact that this area is even higher than the other one we saw suggests the people living here were even more important than the other ones. I hear some of your favorite animals.
Frogs?
Sounds like frogs.
Yeah.
Here we are at the Temple of the Masks, also known as the Pyramid of the Sun God, here at Kohunlich. And this is the central stairway on the western side. This building is one of the oldest, and it was first constructed around the year 500 CE with some additions made around 700. Check out these cool masks that flank the stairway. There were originally 4 on each side, although only 5 total remain today, partially reconstructed. You can see here, this is the Mayan sun god, Kinichna. And there he is with his prominent nose and his front teeth filed in the shape of a T. That's how we recognize him. Around him are mythical monsters, and all of these would have been painted red back in the day. Here's a reconstruction of the masks of the temple at the Grand Museum of the Maya World in Merida. As with many Mayan cities, here too there's also a ball court on site, not very large in this case. As I've been promising, in our upcoming episode on Koba, I will give you a detailed report on the Maya ball game. This is the Stela Plaza, which we had seen from the Acropolis earlier. The building that you see here has a staircase with large stelae and vaulted chambers on it. Driving back up to Highway 186 and continuing eastward, we made our way to the ancient site of Dzibanche. There's a turnoff heading north towards the town of Morokoi. This is a one-lane road with lots of sharp curves and plenty of overgrowth, so be careful. The entrance to Dzibanche is about 16 miles up this road. You'll see the visitor kiosk at the intersection before the site on the right-hand side. The cost for admission is 60 pesos, which is about $3.10 US.
So the ticket for Dzibanche will also get you into Kinichna, which is only about a kilometer away. And then the whole walking and looking at buildings should only take you about an hour.
Last episode, we examined the great city of Calakmul and the infamous Kan, or Snake Dynasty that ruled it, but the snakes were transplants to Calakmul. We came here to Dzibanche to find out more about them, because from what we can tell, this is their city of origin. The rainforest is quite dense here, the place is mostly shady, so I'm sure that would make exploring the site more tolerable during the summer than other locations. You'll see tropical birds flitting from tree to tree, monkeys here too.
This whole site covers about 12 square miles, and there are 4 groupings of buildings, 3 of which are open to the public. They're open from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m.
Ceramic evidence suggests the settlement was occupied from around 200 BCE, in the middle pre-classic period, but the monumental structures first appeared in the early classic and were made in the Peten style, so that means this city was peaking around the same time as Kohunlich. The The first structure we came upon was the Temple of the Lintels. Archaeologists found a lintel support beam here that records the accession of King Kinichna in 550 CE. The name Dzibanche, I should add, which is a modern name for this site, refers to the lintels here because it means writing on wood. This is the Gan Plaza, named after the archaeologist who first reported on this site. We're closer to the touristy side of the Yucatan, so Dzibanche tends to be more crowded than Kohunlich, or any of the sites we've been to so far other than Uxmal. Now, what makes Dzibanche so cool? You don't know? Well, then I will tell you. This is the hometown of the Snake Dynasty. The Snake Dynasty, do you remember? They're the ones that ruled from Calakmul, but they got their start right here. The Temple of the Captives is located on the west side of the plaza, and it comes from a time even earlier than the Temple of the Lintels. We're here at the Temple of the Captives in Dzibanche, and we're looking at these carved steps. Now, these have been reconstructed somewhat, but originally the steps going up this temple enumerated individual captives that were taken probably in warfare by this city, and they actually have the names of the captives on each of the steps. So it's almost like an enumeration or a list of all the perhaps soldiers of the enemy that had been captured in a recent battle. Each stone step bears a hieroglyphic text and a scene with a captive. The steps often contain the names of the individuals that were captured. None of the steps tell us where the prisoners came from, but the similarity between a name on one of the steps and the name of a local king suggests the enemy came from the nearby city of El Respalon. Yuknom Chen I was the king of Dzibanche at this time and the captor of the prisoners named on the steps. There's also a glyph block associated with the Kan Dynasty and dates to 464 CE. Emblem glyphs are a fascinating feature of Maya writing, by the way. Each kingdom had its own emblem glyph. The most basic meaning of an emblem glyph is as a royal title. So for example, in this one, we have 4 parts to the glyph. This part is the word ahau, which means lord. This part is the word kohul, which means holy. This is a typical title for a king. Kohul ahau, holy lord. Here at the bottom is the snake image, pronounced Kan, and this little feature is a grammatical prefix which tells you how to pronounce Kan. But an emblem glyph is not merely a royal title. It carried broader meaning too. It can refer to a dynasty and to the place the dynasty ruled, although, as in the case of the Kan Dynasty, that place could change. So the discovery of the Kan emblem glyph at Dzibanche, among other pieces of evidence, has led researchers to believe that this was the early capital of the Kan Dynasty, which later ruled Calakmul. This idea is supported also by the fact that the emblem is not seen at Calakmul until after 631 CE. So it looks like the Kan Dynasty moved its headquarters from here to there. If you're interested in learning more about Maya emblem glyphs, I will link below an excellent lecture by an expert on the subject, Simon Martin. Now, as you may know from our last episode, at the end of the 5th century, Tikal was one of the most powerful states in the region. Archaeologists suspect that it held its position with the help of Teotihuacan, a much larger city to the west. But in the 6th century, Teotihuacan left Tikal to itself. That's when the Snake Dynasty here at Dzibanche saw an opportunity and made their play. They began hoarding influence all over the region, offering gifts and making allies of Tikal's neighbors to give it the squeeze. Many of these political maneuvers were the work of K'altun Hish, but he died before he could make a major move against Tikal. That was left to his successor. The largest temple at Dzibanche is on the east side of Gan Plaza and is called the Temple of the Cormorants. It was built during the 5th century using the talud tablero style of architecture, which was inspired by the art of Teotihuacan. Those 3 vaulted entrances you see are tombs. The tomb on the bottom left belonged to Sky Witness, one of the kings of the Kan Dynasty. Because of the difficulty in reconstructing his full name in Mayan, for the time being we're calling K'altun Hish's son by his English translation, Sky Witness. And he was perhaps the greatest king this city had. His remains were still in the tomb, his skull having scars on top of other scars. The king was battered from many battles. There also was found a bone needle used for blood rituals. Written along one side of the needle are the words, "This is the blood offering of Sky Witness." I can tell you a little bit about Maya blood rituals if you like. People seem to be fascinated by that. Their bloodletting rituals were called chab and involved perforating or puncturing different body parts to withdraw blood. The most common tools they used for this practice were obsidian blades, bone needles, stingray spines, and knotted cords. The most common body parts they used these tools on were lips, tongues, ears, and penises. They used ceramic pottery or baskets to collect the blood, and sometimes bark paper, which they would then burn with copal incense. They do this along with fasting, tobacco smoking, and ritual enemas to provoke a trance that would lead to supernatural visions through which they could petition or receive guidance from the gods or dead ancestors. Both men and women engaged in these rituals, but they were most common among the ruling nobility. Their blood was believed to hold more power. Most of the time, these practices were probably carried out privately in secluded rooms in temples, but there also were public ceremonies that the general population attended on important calendar dates or at the accession of a new king. Now, back to Sky Witness and his battle scars. In the last episode, I told you about how the Kan kings had two important wars with Tikal. Well, there was a war between those two states before that, the first of the three Calakmul-Tikal military encounters. Except this one didn't come from Calakmul, because the snakes are still here at this point. This one was led by Sky Witness from Dzibanche. Forces from Caracol, Naranjo, and Holmul joined him, and they converged on Tikal, crushing its army, sacking the city, and probably sacrificing the king of Tikal on one of his own altars. According to an inscription in Caracol, this happened on April 29th, 562. As you walk up into the higher Xibalba Plaza, you'll see stucco friezes on the side of the temple. The friezes feature symbols that are in the Teotihuacan style of art. On the opposite side of this plaza is the Temple of the Owls, which you are allowed to climb. If you notice, its style is reminiscent of Rio Bec. The temple had 9 doors, which may have symbolized the 9 levels of the underworld. Underneath this structure, archaeologists discovered a tomb of a high-ranking female, currently unidentified. Lavish funerary objects were found, including a statue of a monkey made of alabaster, jade jewelry, and a ceramic vase decorated in the style of the bird after which this temple is named. Kinichna is very close to Dzibanche, a little over a mile up the road. It's much smaller. There really is only one building to marvel at, but your ticket is good here, and you can knock this off in less than an hour. Don't skip it, because the building here is arguably more impressive than any of the ones we just saw at Dzibanche. Kinichna was a dependent of Dzibanche. In other words, the center of government for Kinichna was in Dzibanche. Residents of this town had access to Dzibanche through various sakbeob, ceremonial roads. The main attraction here is the pyramid, known as the House of the Sun. In fact, the name of the site is the name of the pyramid, Kinichna. Set in a forested area around a small plaza and fronted by some low platforms, it's a giant structure of 3 main levels, built during the early Classic period. Visitors are allowed to climb to the top, so that is exactly what we did, and boy, was it worth it. 2 royal burials were discovered inside the structure. No one we know.
We just came off of those stairs behind us. Those are no joke. And we're sweating and we're panting.
I'll tell you what, these sites just keep getting more and more interesting. But we are leaving the country in our next episode. That's right, we're going into Belize, which has many fabulous ancient ruins of its own. Be sure not to miss it by subscribing to the channel. If you're interested in learning more about the Maya, I highly recommend the book The Maya by Michael Coe and Coe Houston. I'll leave a link in the description below the video if you want to go check it out. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.